Hi, and welcome to this third video in our series. We are talking about jaw clenching, jaw tension, jaw pain, headaches, migraines, and the cause of those. So I'm going to be explaining to you in this video why posture is so relevant in the cause of all of those conditions. Um, and at the end, I'd like you to just let me know that you've watched this video because I have one more training for you that I'd love for you to watch. So just let me know that you've been through this video. Ask me any questions if you want to. I'd love to answer those. And then I can point you in the direction of the next video. Okay, so my name is Ellie Lindsay and I'm a massage therapist. And every day I am helping people with jaw pain, clenching, grinding, headaches, and migraines. That's in my clinic in person and also online through coaching as well. So I'm so glad that you're here watching this series. Today we're going to take a deep dive into posture, and do remember to just let me know at the end that you've watched the video. Okay, so what you probably know as being bad posture is that way that we sit at our desks and on our phones and, go about day-to-day life with our shoulders kind of coming forward and our heads coming forward, and this kind of like a slouched position. And what I want to say about that is, firstly, it doesn't always cause pain. You could see people out and about and they've got that kind of posture that they've developed and it doesn't cause them pain. But if you're suffering with any of those symptoms that I mentioned, so headaches, jaw pain, clicking, tension, etc., and you feel like you have those tendencies to sort of come forward with your shoulders, forward with your head, then it's likely that posture is involved in the problem. And most of those habits develop very, very slowly. So it could have been over the last 10 years, 20 years, your whole of your adult life that we've really actually developed that kind of posture. And I'll just show you this picture so you can sort of see a little bit about what I mean. So this lady here, she's trying to get her head back against the wall, and as you can see, there's quite a gap there. So that's quite common, and you can do that yourself. If you go and stand against the wall, you might find it quite difficult to actually get the back of your head to touch the wall there. So I just want to explain to you really what that means for some of the muscles and the fascia that we covered in the other videos. So if you imagine that your shoulders are sort of coming quite forward, it may not look to you as if this lady's shoulders are that forward, but you can see how much she is really having to force them back for them to be against the wall here. So if your shoulders are forwards, I'm just going to show you a side view here so that you get a bit of a better understanding. So if your shoulders come forward like this, which most of us do, we sort of bring our shoulders forward like this, then as you can see, my natural position is that my head is now looking downwards. Now, what the body does is it does everything that it can to make sure that the eyes are always looking forward. So if your shoulders come forward, this is more likely to be your actual, I'm exaggerating a bit, but not that much. This is most likely to be your position. So my head is still forward because it's not in line with my spine, but it's not sort of tipping forward like this because the brain always wants the eyes directly in front. Okay, so then if you think about what that's doing, so the head actually weighs 5 kilos. So it's super, super heavy. And the reason why it should sort of sit back nicely above our spines is then we have all of that distribution of weight down our spine, and we have that even into our hips and through our legs. Like our whole body is supporting this really heavy head. And that's the way that it's supposed to be, because the head is heavy. But what happens when we come forward like this is that there's a change in the structures that actually have to support the head. So I'll show you this next image here so you can get a better idea. So here you get a bit better of an idea. So that's sort of like the head's a little bit more aligned there. And this second picture is just showing you what I just showed you with that head position. So in video number 1, we spoke about that muscle called the SCM, and here's where you start to see how all of this is tied together. So that muscle called the SCM is having to work really hard to hold up the head. And it's not really its job, you know, it's not really its job to do that. But because of this, the way that we're positioning our heads in this forward posture, that muscle actually becomes really overworked and really trigger pointy. That's how it gets trigger points, and that's how it gets fascia adhesions. So you can see how what we've spoken about before really ties in with this. Because if a muscle is overworked, that's how it gets trigger points. That's the key reason. So, and once we get trigger points in this muscle, then obviously we're then thinking about the trigger point pain pattern that I showed you before, which I'll show you again soon, of that big, you know, jaw pain, headaches, that big problem. And once we get fascia adhesions in this area, as we spoke about in the last video, then we start to get that pulling of the jaw. So you can see how all of this is linked. So the way that we hold our head forwards more than we should overworks certain muscles, which then creates trigger points and fascia adhesions. So the second thing I'm going to speak about is, we covered this area before, and that's the sub-occipital muscles. So do you remember how in the first video, I told you how they sit at the base of the skull here? And you also may remember that I told you a really key important bit of information about these muscles. And that is that the trigeminal nerve that feeds the jaw passes through these muscles at the back of the head. So what we don't want is any restrictions in those muscles, because then what's going to happen is the trigeminal nerve may well get irritated and restricted, and that's when we can start to get pain here. And then once we've got pain there, that can start the clenching off and the grinding off to try and relieve the pain. So I'm just going to show you that posture again that I sort of developed, which was my shoulders came forward like this. My spine was quite kind of hunched around this area here, which is a bone called C7, which you often see that kind of like, you know, when you see people with that sort of, they're starting to get like a hump there, that is actually like the fascia has built up there to try and actually help the body stay in this position that it thinks you want. The body thinks, if you're always like this, the body's like, oh, you need to be like that, let me help you with it, and it actually like lays down more layers of fascia to try and help support you in that posture. So the body is really adaptive, which is also positive, because it means that we can adapt out of this as well, right? Okay, so if this is where we are, so our shoulders are quite forward, and then our head has to come up like this. Try this out for yourself. See how it really, like, exaggerate it and see how it feels, and really notice how it feels in the back of your neck here. So bring your shoulders forward, lift your eyes up so that they're facing forward, and you'll notice there's a real crushing feeling in the base of your spine there. And remember that nerve passes through there. So can you kind of imagine the problems that can cause? It actually causes what we just spoken about, pain in this area here. And also that nerve feeds this area as well, that same nerve. It's called trigeminal because it breaks out into 3 places. It actually feeds this forehead area here as well, where we're really sort of susceptible to headaches. So let's go back and just have a look again at, just remind ourselves, so of that pain pattern of the SCM. So it starts to make sense now that if we're in that forward posture and the SCM is permanently overworked, how we get to this point where we have this sort of pain. And then that crushing in the base of the skull can cause trigger points, which cause this sort of pain pattern, or often both nerve irritation as well. So what I'd really like you to do now is to come back to me and let me know, firstly, you've watched this video. Secondly, I want to know, did you try that experiment? How did it feel? And third, I want to know, how do you feel about your own posture? And do you feel that, you know, there's room for improvement? Does that sound kind of recognizable to you, that the shoulders are coming forward, and perhaps even that sort of extra fascia layers around this big bone of the spine here as well? So come back to me, let me know those 3 things that you've watched this video, that how relevant it feels to you, and whether or not you feel as if your posture can be improved. And then I've got one final video for you, which I'll be sending the link over to.